Again, thank you everyone for joining us. Today we're going to talk about how MSPs can defend against ransomware with cybersecurity and cyber insurance. And we have ThreatMate and SeedPod Cyber here today. We have Anup Ghosh, CEO of ThreatMate, and we have Doug Kreitzberg, CEO and founder of SeedPod Cyber, who will talk about ransomware for MSPs, talk about cyber insurance, cybersecurity, and how you guys can protect yourselves. So I'll hand it over to Anup to kind of go over what we'll be talking about and introduce themselves.
Great. Thank you, Kathleen. And welcome, Doug, as well. And thanks to everyone who's participating on this live and ultimately on the web as we will make this available to play later. So we're covering what we think is a pretty important and trending topic, which is how do we protect against ransomware? And there's really two components that, as an MSP partner, you need to think about. One is operationally, how do we secure our clients' networks against ransomware attacks? For those of you who manage clients in the SMB space, even the most naive client understands ransomware, and they understand the existential threat that ransomware is to their business. So it's important that you protect your clients against ransomware attacks, and we'll talk some about how you can do that from an operational standpoint. So that's important, but so is the financial aspect as well. So in the event of a ransomware incident, of course, that business will be facing potential catastrophic losses, and that's why we have insurance and cyber insurance in particular. And so Doug will talk about how cyber insurance works, what kind of coverages you can get, and also introduce the Cyber Express program to cover in the event of a loss, right? And obviously none of us wants there to be a loss. I will start out the conversation this afternoon on Eastern time anyway, around ransomware trends. Doug will talk about how cyber insurance works. Really importantly, what we're finding, particularly, in the MSP space, is that this is not only an opportunity to do the right thing by your clients, which means improve their cybersecurity and provide them protection in the event of a loss, but also it's a growth opportunity. It's a revenue growth opportunity for MSPs, because what they're actually doing is solving a business problem for their clients. And so what we have found is this is a really good way to prospect and onboard new customers is by presenting cyber insurance, and in particular protection against ransomware attacks. Doug will speak a little bit to what's not oftentimes discussed, which is the risk and potential liability of having clients that don't have cyber insurance, right? And I think it's kind of obvious if there's a loss event and they're not covered with cyber insurance, we know who they'll turn to, and oftentimes it's their MSP partners. And then finally, we'll have time for Q&A. For any questions you might have, you've got a veritable cyber insurance expert here in Doug, and I play a security expert on TV. So I'm glad to take any questions as well. Let's talk a little bit about ransomware. We're going through a new interesting wave of ransomware attacks. And the reason why this is interesting is back in the 21-22 timeframe, there was a notable drop in ransomware attacks and claims. In particular, we noted that the number of security controls required by cyber insurance companies went up in the 2020 time period, and that was due to, guess what, ransomware attacks preceding that. And then Doug will talk some about the kinds of losses and lost claims that came in to the cyber insurance industry and how that really changed the bar. What we're seeing now is the reaction from the attack side to these kinds of attacks and to these kinds of defenses, and they're trending again. So there are two big insurtechs. One is called Coalition. The other is called Resilience. I wrote about these trends in this article. And again, this deck will be available for you to download afterwards. But basically, ransomware is staging a big comeback right now. And Coalition, which insures against cyber attack, reported a 27% increase in ransomware claims in the first half of 2023 over the same, not even the same time period, the prior time period in 2022. That's fairly significant. Resilience noted an 1,100% increase in ransomware notifications, right? Slightly different from claims from the second quarter 2022 to the second quarter 2023. So that tells you what's going on here, right? These ransomware gangs have picked up their attacks. They're adjusting to the new normal as far as the kinds of controls that have been required by insurance companies. And you see the payouts are really significant, right? So people are paying up, which, by the way, encourages more ransomware attacks, right? But the total was around 457 million in 2022, and now we're expected to see 900 million in ransomware payouts, right, in 2023. And of course, that's subject to go higher as well. So that should give you a feeling. Ransomware makes headlines, so we'll see a lot more headlines around ransomware attacks. But it's clear that you need to be prepared for ransomware attacks as well as preparing your clients for them. Now, I want to spend a moment talking about operational risk and managing operational risk through better security practices. So what does this really mean? So CISA, which is the DHS government agency, cybersecurity agency, published a chart. They published which vulnerabilities are being actively exploited through ransomware campaigns. And so this is sort of non-interactive ransomware attacks, right? Where it doesn't require a user to click on a link or to open an attachment, but really what they're doing is they're just exploiting vulnerabilities in software, right? And I find this chart from the firm called Nucleus really interesting because they analyzed the CISA vulnerabilities they exploited using ransomware campaigns. And I guess no surprise, but 42% of these vulnerabilities were from Microsoft products, right? So, they've got the largest footprint, so we shouldn't be surprised that, they've got a large attack surface, right? And then you can see some of these other vendors as well, sort of in rank order. And these are the top 10 products that were getting exploited through ransomware, right? So from an operational security point of view, what does this mean? This means that as you're managing your clients' networks and their security, you need to be staying on top of these exposures. You need to understand what is the attack surface that these ransomware actors, gangs as they are exploited, right? And you need to have a prioritized list of which ones you need to actually patch in a timely manner, right? So it's incredibly important that you're continuously monitoring for these vulnerabilities that adversaries are using to get into client networks and then exploit them. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Doug to talk about the financial side of this and preparing for a ransomware event, not just operationally, but just as importantly, financially.
Sure. Thanks, Anup. Appreciate that. I'm going to be talking about what is ransomware insurance. I'm going to talk about what is the evolution of insurance been, and how has the markets had to react relative to the losses that they've seen. I'll talk about what the impact of that is to you as a professional who's working with clients to solve their IT and security related needs, and also the opportunity and how insurance can be best placed as part of an overall risk management solution here. So let's go to the next slide, and we'll just talk a little bit about cyber insurance. And those of you on the call may know what cyber insurance is, but just to explain it, it basically is insurance that pays pays a business in the event that something, the bad guys or unintentional acts do something that inhibits the ability of your systems to stay up, or your data to be exposed, or in certain cases, it creates the opportunity for what's known as e-fraud or social engineering, which is where e-fraud in the sense of money being transferred out of your account or your client's accounts into the bad guys' accounts. The bulk of the claims, and we'll talk about claims in a moment here, are involve what are known as first-party claims. And what that means is the insurance covers the costs for that organization to get itself back up and running. It has to pay for the legal fees. It has to pay for those credit monitoring reports and the letters that have to go out in the event of a data breach. It may have to pay for the ransom payment itself. And it may have to pay for any lost income that you or the business suffers as a result of being down. The average time that a business is down due to a ransomware attack is around 26 days. And for a business to sustain itself during that period is going to require extra expense, or they may just suffer lost profits due to revenue downturn during that period of time. And that's a large part of where the costs are. It will also cover you in the event that you're sued. So if there's your ransomware attack inhibits your ability to deliver contractually services, you may be sued by clients, or if there's a data breach as part of a ransomware attack, which is often the case, your clients may sue if they feel that they've suffered damage in that regard as well here. And what has occurred over time is a change in the way that the carriers have really looked and underwritten this risk. And what this chart shows, this basically shows from 2015 to 2021 the rise in premiums. So that's the bars. And it also shows the red line is what's known as the loss ratio. And the loss ratio is basically the amount of claims divided by the amount of premium. So when the loss ratio is low, the carriers are doing, they're making money. And as the loss ratio goes up, the carriers stop, they start not being profitable in these particular lines of business. And you can see the line basically from 2018 steadily going up, and then going up even at a steeper slope during the COVID period, as the businesses started having more work from home environments, which increased the attack surface and created a great opportunity for ransomware, which had been somewhat of a bit player from a loss perspective, to being the leading cause of loss. And when the causes of loss were, businesses had to pay the ransom and often in order to get back up and running. They were down for that period of time, so the business interruption claims were high there. And it took some time and cost in order to get the systems back up and running. So all those three combined on an individual business to push the loss ratios up, and then multiplying by the frequency there created the steep uptick in the loss ratio. And you can see there was a 300% increase in claims during the period of 18 to 21. Premiums increased 92% in 21. I can tell you, and if we have the 22 data here, overall from 20 to 22, premiums increased 154%. And that's one of the levers that carriers use. You know, when there's losing money, one of the areas that they address is they just raise rates and to cover the loss ratio. And what that doesn't mean, though, is even if the loss ratio goes down as it did in 21, as well as 22, it's more of a function of the premiums being higher than the loss actually decreasing. So as Anup explained, the dramatic increase from 22 to 23 of ransomware attacks and the severity, the dollar amount that they're projecting the losses to be, that hasn't gone away, and it won't be going away anytime soon. This is still going to be a major issue, and from a carrier perspective, it's an issue where they're trying to figure out how do we really understand these risks, how do we deal with the risks, and from the business standpoint, you know, these are especially for the small and medium-sized businesses, a ransomware attack can be an existential event. There's recent statistics that have said that you know, a business that suffers 25% of the small and medium-sized businesses that suffer a ransomware attack go out of business within a year of that attack through a combination of their inability to maintain the lost profits, the lost reputation, and lost clients, and the inability to really get back up and running concretely. And that's where the role of an MSP is so critical, because you are that last mile into the digital infrastructure of America's small business, and your ability to provide the right cybersecurity services not only helps them obviously from a secure profile, and which should reduce the frequency of loss. It also puts them in a position to be insured, which gives them the ability to take the risks that they need to take in order to move forward and thrive. If we go to, I'm sorry, Anup.
Yeah, Doug, I was just going to comment on really this slide and the trending you're talking about. Sort of a statement of the obvious. It's unsustainable both to have, you know, ransomware attack losses like the chart showed, right? And obviously for these premiums to keep going up. So the carriers are losing money. In turn, they're increasing premiums to cover their losses. That those increased premiums really become unsustainable for most businesses too. And there's significant, customer side pressure to have insurance as well. So, you know, you wouldn't be getting cyber insurance typically unless you're required to. And now just about every business that's B2B is required to have cyber insurance. So I think the net of this is we have to do better operationally to make insurance work for all of us as well. Right.
Exactly. It's and we'll talk about that more as we go forward. Now we talked about what happens when the carriers are losing money. They certainly raise rates. The other is they totally exit the market, and the third is they lower limits. And just a couple points, and building on what you said here, we are, a lot of the issues from the insurance side and the reactions is in part because the inability to really understand the risks that they're writing. It still is the underwriting is still largely done through application attestation. It's also largely done through, and in some cases, also supplemented by external scanning, and that gives you one glimpse of the risk, but it doesn't really give you an understanding of what's behind and what security controls are in place here. And so, what the carriers are looking for now, we'll talk about the technical controls in a moment, but there's other factors as well. Carriers are looking for. They're looking for business stability. They're looking at the types and volumes of data. Obviously, if you're in healthcare, if you're in financial services, that data is more valuable, and therefore you're in a risky environment. They're also looking at how organizations are really addressing risk from a governance standpoint. This is becoming more and more of an issue in my conversations with carriers. Is trying to determine, how effective is the organization in terms of talking about risk, reviewing risk, and obviously addressing it there. So that's important, and that's also important to you as an MSP because you're viewed by the carriers as having what's called aggregation risk. In other words, if the bad guys get into your system, then they get into your 100 of your clients, as an example, and so your risk profile, your approach to risk is as important as the technical controls that you have in place too. The industry is important. Revenue size, from a rating standpoint, pure rating standpoint, is the basis from which the premiums are generated. So they start with revenues. There's a price per per million revenue, and then they build up the premiums from there. So that's certainly important. And then finally, the technical controls, and I want to just talk about those briefly here. If we go to the next slide. And and this is kind of the basic insurability kit. There's certainly other solutions you can have, but if for firms to really, in some cases, get insurance at all, or really maximize their opportunity to get the best terms, they really should have this in place. And this is where the opportunity for you as an MSP to really deliver value exists, because all these solutions you have. Multi-factor authentication is certainly number one, and it would be tough for any business to really get cyber insurance without at least having that in place. The backup solutions, especially when we're talking ransomware, the need to have a good backup solution is critical. Making sure that there's different credentials for that backup versus other systems. Making sure that it's tested on an ongoing basis here. Having a firewall in place with the best practice standards in terms of locking down those RDP, SMB ports, geo-blocking as well. And next gen AV, endpoint detection and response. These are critical for identifying and addressing anomalous incidents when they occur, and certainly the email filtering, DNS filtering, really making sure that your clients DNS includes DMARC, SPF, DKIM. That can really mitigate a lot of the kind of the e-fraud losses that the carriers see. Encryption is critical, security awareness and training, and having a good IR plan in place. There's an inverse relationship between the quality of the IR plan and the amount of loss, and so that's a valuable service that you can provide your clients here. And in our conversations with managed service providers, we do hear that they're being asked, to fill out those applications, and we do hear that they're confused as to what controls really need to be in place, and this hopefully gives you a good roadmap of some minimum solutions to have, in addition to perhaps some other services that you also provide.
And this might be a good lead in to, an important topic that's coming up, which is revenue generation for
Right.
MSPs. And I know there's a couple of factors that inhibit MSPs from getting to this. One is just inexperience with deploying these tools, right? And that's where having an outsourced 24/7 SOC can help, right?
Yep.
But the other is inability to communicate, right? Inability to communicate why a client needs multi-factor authentication. What is multi-factor, and why do you need it, right? And what is endpoint detection and response, and DMARC and SPF. These aren't common terms that someone who is in business might necessarily be aware of. And my reaction is these are really important baseline tools to be applying to any business. And the fact that today, in order to get cyber insurance, you pretty much have to have this is how you present this to your clients, right? Because they understand ransomware. They now need to understand, how do I prevent and address ransomware? So obviously there's some before ransomware prevention solutions and after ransomware solutions in this mix. And of course, to get insurance as well, you will need attack surface management. The first thing any cyber insurance firm does, including SeedPod Cyber, is scan the external attack surface to understand what services you're offering the internet, what vulnerabilities they might have, what insecure protocols you might have. But so my question for you, Doug, is today, to get cyber insurance, you obviously need a baseline of capabilities. You need a reasonable minimal attack surface. When do we anticipate the insurance industry will move to more of a continuous monitoring approach, or what are the benefits for a client to be or an MSP to continuously monitor attack surface, even behind the firewall, right, for their clients?
Right. I think that certainly is the direction that cyber insurance will be going. As we mentioned before, one of the biggest challenges that the market has is its ability to really understand what the risk is, and the risk is largely dependent upon what's in the environment, and are they deployed effectively. And it's one thing to do a scan at the time, one time a year during the insurance renewal process. But as we all know, things change over time. There's different technologies put in place. There may be mergers, different reductions, or increases to staff, or the types of products being sold. And that all has a technological component to it, which can impact the security posture. And so for the market, as well as for the from the insurance industry side, as well as for the businesses themselves, having continuous monitoring is critical to make sure that their risks are consistent with and within a certain there's a guardrail set up, so to speak, to manage and mitigate ransomware threat here. And the other component, and just to follow, tag on to what Anup said, the continuous monitoring, if presented in the right way to the business, can really help them from a governance standpoint, help them really understand what's important that they should be looking at and talking about, at the, with their executive team here. And so this can that type of monitoring can really help position you as an MSP really as that cyber risk manager that your clients really need. Because if COVID has shown us nothing else, it's that we're all now digital businesses, and this type of risk is here to stay.
Yeah,
Here.
Sort of to summarize, right? So, security isn't a once a year activity, right? It's something businesses need to be monitoring continuously. It sort of reminds me, since we're still in October, as many of you know, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And it always struck me as odd, that we pay attention to cybersecurity month of October, because it's not like the bad guys take off the rest of the year, right? Same thing, when it comes to these controls, right? You need to be monitoring continuously. And I do think, given the kinds of claims that we're seeing in the rise in ransomware incidents, we're going to see the cyber insurers get on board with more continuous monitoring, right, as a requirement. And they certainly have, gone, leap years ahead from where they were in the past. So I'm really encouraged.
Right. And I think, I would agree. And why your clients need cyber insurance, perhaps we may have talked about that earlier. I would say what's driving a lot of the sales right now is that they are being required by their clients to maintain a certain level of cyber insurance. And so you're finding, there could be a large percentage of your clients right now who may not have cyber insurance. Within 2 years, that percentage is going to flip, because if they want to, as Anup said, and especially in the B2B space, if they want to keep their doors open and keep selling to their clients and deriving business from them, they're going to be required to have the cyber insurance. And as part of that, they're going to be required to have certain controls in place, which is where the value, one aspect of the value that should accrue to the MSPs in your role.
If you think about it, Doug, this is the opportunity for an MSP to be proactive, right? Because we know these businesses will be required to have cyber insurance. So either you're behind the 8 ball and your client is coming to you saying, "Hey, by the way, is our EDR being managed? How are we looking at MFA? Because I'm finding my cyber insurance carriers requiring this," and now you're on your heels reacting. Or you can not only lead with, "Hey, not only do we have these controls in place, but we can also provide you the cyber insurance you need and provide you that peace of mind against ransomware attacks." So this is the opportunity, essentially, to take the lead position rather than reacting to it.
Yep. And I think it's important that one of the things that's important, you as an MSP are probably already finding yourself in this role today, is making sure that this is a role that we certainly play in working with our partners. But some things to caution. There's certain things that the business really needs to do in order to make sure that it has the coverage in place when it needs it. And one of the critical things is making sure that if they are signing off saying that yes, they have multi-factor authentication in this example, talk about that in a moment, that is actually in place. And I know that you're often, as an MSP, put in the position of maybe having to explain to a client that you can't answer yes on this application here. You've got to answer no unless we do something, and make sure that they understand that. I would also, to the extent that you are completing applications We don't ask you to complete applications at SeedPod. We address that ourselves. But to the extent that you are completing applications, be honest. Just write, and don't, feel free to, you don't have to check a box. You can sometimes write, even if it's on a separate piece of paper, to explain what's exactly in the environment. This is just a cautionary tale of a case where Travelers Insurance versus a company. This company had cyber insurance with Travelers. There was a question on the application as to whether they had multi-factor authentication on all their critical assets. The business replied that they did. There was a ransomware attack, successful. And when the business filed for a claim and forensics came in, forensics uncovered that they actually did not have multi-factor authentication in place, except for on the firewall, and no other assets had MFA. And so Travelers basically pulled back. They rescinded coverage, actually, and they won in court with regards to it. This isn't to say that insurance isn't there to provide coverage, but it is something where businesses need to really be clear and be careful in terms of responding through the application process, and more importantly, make sure that they have the actual controls in place so that they can get the best terms and the carrier is going to respond effectively.
And this again crosses over into the operational security side of the house, and it can be confusing when you're a CFO filling out these forms and you send a Teams message or Slack to your CISO, or I'm making up terms that don't really belong in the small business space necessarily, but you can ask, do we have MFA? And your director of security is like, oh yeah, we've got MFA. And he's just thinking on his account, right? And not necessarily across the board or the critical accounts. So it is important that you have visibility on what accounts have multi-factor enabled, right? And that is something that we provide. ThreatMate provides when we integrate with your O365 or Google Workspace. We can tell you exactly which accounts don't have MFA enabled, right? So that you have that visibility, so that your clients get that visibility, and then of course can take the corrective actions as needed to get to MFA across the board, or at least on the critical accounts.
Absolutely. Here and so, from your perspective as an MSP, there's incorporating cyber insurance into your value proposition benefits you in a number of ways. Certainly, and when we talk with our MSP partners, it's interesting. Improved client security is really the number one it partially, or maybe mostly, because it actually lowers the risk to the MSP itself. Here, if your MSPs don't have cyber insurance, they most likely aren't they don't have enough of the security controls in place. They become a bigger risk. They get hit. They're going to try to figure out a way to look to the MSP or bring them into the claim in some ways. So this is a great de-risking way for MSPs. And in fact, some MSPs are just requiring now clients to have cyber insurance to keep their relationship. It's also important to secure your own tech E&O insurance here. Having being able to demonstrate that you have the right security solutions for your clients, that you have the right expertise in terms of providing those services, as well as having having the right security posture yourself, is a way for you to really maximize the terms that you can receive through Tech E&O. And I can tell you, a lot of carriers have exited this space for MSPs over the years, and prices have been going up. And so this is an area that you really want to pay attention to. We've talked about enhanced selling proposition, here in terms of being able to upsell your existing clients onto the tech stack so they can be insurable. It becomes a selling proposition to prospects who may be with, may either have their own internal departments that don't have the expertise in security, or they're working with another competitor of yours that don't have the expertise as well. This is an opportunity for you to position yourself in a unique way. And then there's new revenue streams. There's revenue streams certainly coming from selling the additional products, as we've talked about. SeedPod, we have some additional revenue streams that we'll be happy to talk to you about as well as we move forward here.
It might be important to be clear on the revenue growth side, right? So there's additional revenue from selling the required security controls. There's obviously the services behind those controls. But I think we should also be clear, Doug, you're not asking people to be an insurance broker, right?
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. No. We're not. We don't. You don't want to be that. There's a lot of reasons you wouldn't want to be that. One of which is regulatory. Here, you don't need to be an expert in insurance. You don't need to sell the insurance. That's where we come in. We have the licensing, we have the expertise, carrier relationships, et cetera. We'll make sure that the clients are placed with the right carriers, where the client's benefit and where you benefit is that they're getting preferential terms because we have a different insight into the risk. Because of our relationship with you and because of our relationship with ThreatMate, we're able to understand and really know what's in the environment here, and as opposed to just relying on those application attestations here. So that's the role that we would hope you would play. And one of the things that we have, we've just rolled this out, we're very excited about it, is Cyber Express. And Cyber Express is available through our MSP partners. It's available as part of a ThreatMate package. And where for businesses, for your clients under $50 million in revenue, they receive $1 million of coverage for as low as $1,775. That's annual premium. And that's available if the business is under 25 million. If they're between 25 and 50 million, the premium is a little over $2,000 here. It's an easy process. It provides improved stickiness and upsells to your security stack. And one of the main things that it provides, and it's part of the eligibility requirement, is that those baseline security controls are in place. So we've been rolling it out to our existing partners, and what's been interesting, we're getting almost as much interest from those who aren't on the clients who aren't on the security tech stack as those that are already on the tech stack. And those are, and our MSP partners love it because it's an opportunity for them to put that EDR in place now, or that security awareness training, or maybe even put in a MFA solution that doesn't exist today. So those are this is available to and it's available to you as an MSP. We have and we can talk about the mechanism with ThreatMate to help introduce this to your clients too.
Yeah, and You might want to talk about this, then we can
Oh,
go.
sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And then overall, from the partner program standpoint, here we've talked about how the benefits to you is with the improved client security, securing your own tech insurance, which we provide, the selling proposition, the new revenue streams, and then your clients, the savings on cyber insurance, we're averaging 30% savings for our clients, for MSPs on tech it's 15 to 40% savings as well. And then the clients also, certainly they have that improved security with access to insights that you're providing, and through an organization like ThreatMate, which can provide kind of that vulnerability insights that can help them maintain their security posture as their business changes and as the threat landscape changes.
And obviously, there's a lot of good information in this webinar, but please reach out to this email address to learn more on the cyber insurance program. As Doug mentioned, ThreatMate has teamed up with SeedPod Cyber to offer this $1 million ransomware insurance program. It is more than ransomware insurance, as Doug talked about, includes all kinds of other coverages around cyber incidents. But what we really like about this is as we go to market together with our MSP partners, what we're really doing is we're improving the security of our clients' networks overall, right? And what ThreatMate provides is that attack surface management so that you can identify the security exposures. We're working hand in glove with SeedPod Cyber so that we can quickly assess whether a client can get immediate insurance based on their attack surface profile, or what are the 2, 3, or 4 actions that you can take as an MSP to get them into insurability, right? And then beyond that, moving towards continuous security monitoring, which is what ThreatMate does, we anticipate over time, as you start to improve the security of their networks, not only will that client be sticky because you are providing them insurance coverage, you are increasing security of the network, but their premium rates will either stay low or go lower. And in a world of increasing insurance premiums, I think that's a really big deal. So with that, I think we need to wrap up here. We appreciate your time you've spent with us live or on replay. And Kathleen, if there are any questions that came in, we'd be glad to take those.
Thank you, Anup. We did get a couple questions come in. We can just take one of them quickly if we have time for it.
Okay.
What is the most effective way that MSPs can assess the risks that their clients face? Whether it's a tool or just best practices.
So, at the minimum, anytime you sign up on this program we have at the bottom, we will scan your client's external attack surface, right? And that's something that not only SeedPod, but any insurance company needs to understand is, what does your attack surface look like from the outside? ThreatMate goes beyond that and will integrate with your client's O365 or Google Workspace and tell you about the various accounts, whether they're securely configured, if you have MFA enabled, your domain security, that's also very important, what insecure services you might have running both internally and externally, and then provide continuous monitoring for those. What's I think fairly unique is we're able to rate that risk for you quantitatively, give you risk bands that'll correspond to what SeedPod underwrites against. And I think that's really what you want to be doing, is understanding the security risks for your clients, and then improving that over time.
Awesome. Thank you, Anup.
Mm-hmm. Any others you want to get to?
We have one more that kind of, well, they all go hand in hand, but that kind of piggybacks off that. How can MSPs assist their clients in choosing the right insurance policy based on the risks that they face individually?
Sure. I think as we talked about, you don't, as an MSP, you don't necessarily want to be in the position of recommending one type of insurance over another. I can tell you that cyber insurance, cyber insurance is a specialized type of insurance, and it's often not understood by the traditional insurance broker out there, who maybe have an expertise in another particular area or be a great generalist across the board, but may not really understand how cyber insurance works, or how to structure the coverage, or to the specific needs of the client. So I would definitely recommend that they work with that any of those clients are working with a specialist. Obviously, we are a specialist, so that it's somewhat of a plug for us, but that's really critical. We have found, we're asked to do policy reviews quite a bit, both for MSPs on their own cyber, as well as for their clients. And it's more often than not, we find that they don't have adequate coverage relative to their type of business or relative to the risks. And so they're ending up paying for something that won't be there when they need it, because it's not really adequate to their solution. So that would be my response to that.
Yeah, and I would add on to that. I mean, the reason why I think there's a segment for SeedPod Cyber and InsurTechs more generally is because these risks we're talking about require specialized knowledge and expertise. And so what our partnership really represents is the ability to understand cyber risk at a level that traditional carriers don't ever get to, right? Which means you can underwrite more effectively, better informed, and from a client perspective, they're not overpaying for coverage that isn't sufficient, right? So it's important that you understand the risks, which I think many folks do, and then provide both adequate operational security and adequate insurance coverage. And I think with that, again, thank you for your time spending with us. And, please feel free to send any questions along and download any of the content that we gave here. There's a link at the bottom on how you can get started with this $1 million ransomware insurance program. Really easy. It's free analysis of any of your clients. And from there, we'll be glad to tell you what's the best way to move forward with your clients. So with that, Kathleen, I hand it over to you.
All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us. We will be posting this webinar on our website as well as on our social media at some point. So check it out there. And thank you for joining us again, and hope everyone has a great day, great rest of the week.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.